formulation of feed has been focusing mostly on digestible fraction of the feed, and it's very hard to formulate on the non-digestible fraction because the analytical techniques are not available to really characterize this undigestible fraction. But it's actually this non-starch polysaccharide fraction, which is derived from the walls of the cells of plants, that is the substrate where the microbes in the lower intestinal tract feed on. So that is the challenge. You cannot steer on the undigestible fraction of the feed because it's hard to analyze it. So what you can do is actually add some of this undigestible fraction in a form that is readily available for the microbes, and then you can steer towards the beneficial microbes, which essentially is steering towards butyrate production by this group of microbes which is called the firmicutes. That's a phylum of the microbiota that is directly involved in butyrate production. You can do it directly by adding butyrate to the feed, but it's even better to do it indirectly by giving a supply of a substrate that is converted by lactobacilli into lactate, which is then cross-fed to the butyrate producers.
In many respects, people think of oligosaccharides as being prebiotics. That means that those prebiotics are actually fermented in a total and utterly stoichiometric way directly to short-chain fatty acids. And what do I mean by that? I mean, we provide all of the fuel, so the oligosaccharides we produce, the prebiotics we produce with our enzyme, are fermented directly to the short-chain fatty acids, which we see directly in the seeker. So in other words, those short-chain fatty acids are derived directly from the prebiotics we produce. What we've shown, and what we now believe, is that the amount of material that we produce, the amount of those oligosaccharides, is very small indeed. And if they were all to be fermented to short-chain fatty acids, you would not see it at all in the seeker. So we know it's not a direct fueling effect. What we believe is happening is that these short-chain oligosaccharides are in sufficient quantity to excite the fiber-degrading bacteria to produce their own xylanases in huge quantity, and they go forward and digest the fiber more effectively than our xylanase ever would on its own. So when we say symbiotic, what we mean a prebiotic oligosaccharide, which if we fed at very high levels would provide the short-chain fatty acids, but we're feeding that oligosaccharide at much lower levels, and instead of being a fuel, it's a signal. It's not a fuel, it's a signal, and that's what we mean by a symbiotic. So a symbiotic is actually a prebiotic, but fed at much lower levels, which only provide a signal and not a fuel.
The future is using NIR to measure NSPs and our polysaccharides in our grains. So we use it a lot commercially for measuring all our other nutrients. So to me, it's a no-brainer that we lock down NIR for NSPs so that we can improve the accuracy of our feed formulations. So at the moment when we use crude fiber, it's like 10% of our matrix isn't there because crude fiber is so inaccurate. So yeah, if we can use NIR to do NSPs, then we can make our formulations a lot more precise.